Let's move to a much more likable basketball team because I can't do this anymore. Michigan State, Villanova. We were there. I'll tell you this: the Brez was rocking, and I've been at a lot of games at the Breslin Center. I grew up in Lansing, probably around 40, 50 of them, honestly. And this reminded me of really back to like the mid 2000s era when like you had Shannon Brown in that gym, or like you had some dudes that were just dudes, like a really talented team, and the whole state, the whole city knew about it, and you knew what you were going to get with Michigan State. That hasn't been there the last couple of years. And I know that's no shot at the fans, no shot at anybody, but just there's been a little more of a flat energy to the Breslin Center unless they're playing the rival. And this thing was popping. I mean, you were there. The environment was crazy. We could both sense it. And this team is really good. Like, I mean, they opened up essentially a 15-point lead against Villanova that they were coasting with for much of that game. It got dicey at the end, and we'll talk about that. But man, you come out of this week with 2 wins against Kentucky and Villanova. You got to be feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I always point back to looking back of where I thought we would be when we were talking about this team preseason. And if you would have told me we were at this point, I would be absolutely ecstatic. So, I mean, it was a great win. It got dicey at the end for a reason we just couldn't even really put our finger on. I mean, we were watching the game and kind of not looking at the scoreboard as much at certain points of the game. And I remember you looking over to me and you're like, man, it really feels like State's been up 20 this whole game. And then all of a sudden, like it just went down to 12 and then it went down to 7. And you're just like, oh, shit. That's kind of tough. But, I think that Tyson Walker just hold a completely different player this year. And I mean, it's like night and day. It is crazy. Tyson Walker is a bucket, like a real bucket. Like everything we looked at when he came out of Northeastern, we're like, oh, he's putting up buckets and like he's going into Chapel Hill and giving North Carolina 30. Like that guy's here, and he's perfect.
I can't believe that we've come to this, but he is. It's insane. I mean, I killed Tyson so much last year, and I think I was accurate in killing Tyson. Like, I hope at the very least, like through these 2 weeks, I hope at the very least that both sides of our listeners from the state of Michigan can at least step back and be like, oh, Greg's not just a biased asshole anymore. Because like Tyson Walker's incredible. And I wasn't just hating on him to hate him last year. Like he was really horrible and he was a liability and he wouldn't shoot the ball last year. And I broke film down on him. Like I saw signs of this in the Northeastern version of him, which is why I was so frustrated with how he played at Michigan State. And I can't believe he turned it around. I give Izzo credit for it because I think it's a lot of it's role stuff with him. Like I think he's just comfortable really playing that full off ball role now and covering point guard when he has to, but he goes out and gets to be the offensive hunter for this team. And that's awesome. But it applies to everybody along the roster, right? Like I think you're getting the best version of everyone right now, except for AJ Hogard. And that'll come. I think I'm not overly concerned about it. He was on
he did hit some threes Friday night, which was nice to see.
He hit a lot of threes. He was on the floor in crunch time too, which was notable to me because he'd been benched in the crunch times of the first two. So I thought Hogard was fine. I still don't think we're seeing the best version of him, but maybe we'll get there. Hauser's obviously been great. Hall, other than turnovers, has been great to me. The team just like knows who they are and is who they are. And one other thing, I told my parents this yesterday, and they were probably like, "We don't care. Why are you telling me this?" But so I don't think in person I've ever seen a team with this type of chemistry. And I think I've seen a lot of teams with just like great chemistry. So I got to be careful how I word this, but I don't think I've seen a team so clearly playing for each other and or playing for their coach as this one. And I say that because at the Champions Classic, like when they won that game against Kentucky, like just the way they celebrated was like it was like for Izzo. Like they almost like mobbed this guy on the sidelines. And then you got the interview with Marty and everybody's behind him. And like, the skeptic in me would be like, oh, who's telling them to do that? Nobody's telling this team to do this. They're not telling this team to be disconnected. They just are disconnected. And I've spent the whole week like not getting that image out of my head and trying to figure out what it is. And I really think this team is coming from a place where they had to listen to people like us and actual media members and their own fan base essentially beg for guys to come replace them. Every single guy on this roster has heard a Michigan State fan complain and say they're not good enough for 2 years. And they've been right for the most part. And Izzo could have very easily gone out and gotten replacements. We wanted him to, but he didn't. And he said, I know better than you, and I'm going to do this my way, and I'm going to get the most out of this team. And you don't know what they're capable of. And for that team, like for that decision to be made, number one, give credit to Izzo. He's an insane person, but give credit to him. And two, for them to then immediately experience success at the highest level on the biggest stage against a blue blood program in Kentucky, like that has to be one, so rewarding, but two, like, oh, like you saw it in us and thank you for giving us this opportunity. Like that's how this team acts with each other and with Izzo. And it's just like, it's special to see. Number one, you compare it to Michigan, where I'm saying they're the most unlikable team I've ever seen in my lifetime. Like it's so hard to not love what you get out of this Michigan State team because they play like they're underdogs and they play like nobody believed in them because they were. And now they're looking like a top 10 team in the country. It's just special. And I give Izzo credit and I give everybody on the team credit because it's really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, and we talked about it coming into the year. We said that, after a summer of basically complaining. I mean, that's really what it was. It was across fan base complaining. We said, you know what, let's look at the positives of what the season could be. And we said this could possibly be Coach Izzo's best coaching job of his career if he makes this team work. And up until this point, he's making it work better than I think a couple people could have imagined. And I know certainly I could have imagined. So credit to him for doing so. And we're like you said, I still think there's more we can get from some guys. I still think there's more we can get from AJ Hoggard. I think we might want to touch on the center position a little bit because it's time for everybody to come up from here. It's right back down to ground level earth just a wee bit, because on Friday night when me and Greg went to the game, me and him both had 2 less points and 2 less rebounds than the center position combined.
We actually had 1 less point in the center
Oh,
position.
sorry.
Yeah. It's all right. 1.3 rebounds was the 40 minutes that Michigan State got from Mady Sissoko plus Jackson Kohler plus Carson Cooper. Yeah, let's do in-depth thoughts on Unscripted this week, which is the podcast we do with the Field of 68. That'll come out. I'm sure we'll do one before the feast week kicks off or before whatever the Phil night kicks off. So yeah, center was really, really bad. Let's touch on that in depth there. But yeah, I think we didn't. People crowned Mady Sissoko very prematurely after he did well against Kentucky's backup centers in double overtime.
Eric Dixon fucking cooked that man.
Yeah. Like had man looking like a Thanksgiving turkey cart.
Right, in respect to Eric Dixon, but at the same time, come on now. It's Eric Dixon.
Yeah. I mean, he looked like National Player of the Year, Eric Dixon there. So.
Yeah.
We'll see, but they won. They won. Did get dicey though. The fact that was dicey. I have some end game questions and I have some center questions. We'll do those on Unscripted. Listen to us there. All in all, I mean, just to wrap up the Michigan State section, scale of 1 to 100. What's your happiness meter with Michigan State basketball right now?
I'm not gonna lie, it's 100.
You got the max, right?
Yeah, I'm feeling great.
Oh man, who would have thought it would swing like this? Like from where we were preseason to me being so down and you being so up. You deserve this after the last few years.
I mean, I was making charts, man.
You were making charts. I'm about a week away from a chart at this point. Let's go to